request Mr. Ashok Bhan to tell us about the state of minorities, particularly Kashmiri Pandits, and some concrete steps that we need to do if we really want to rehabilitate minorities in Kashmir. Over to you, Ashok ji.
Sir, I was terribly impressed by all the presentations so far. On the military perspective, General Rambi gave us the most incisive and most practical and strategic viewpoint. And on Gilgit-Baltistan, Barrister Bashani, as usual, gave us, but it was an improvised version that how to deal with, and he brought in United Nations also into it. And then Javed, of course, has raised very pertinent, and we need to flag his presentation as the ground level presentation because he has given us the perspective of the society, how society moves. And in this perspective, if we look at the minority scenario in Kashmir, Kashmiri Pandit is the second largest component of Kashmir civilization. There is Muslim and there is Hindu. And the second component of the civilization is out of Kashmir today for the last 30 years. Realities are sometimes very harsh to accept. But in the modern times of enlightenment and democratic India, Kashmiri Pandits as a society, almost 7 lakhs of the population, which is the aboriginal population of the Kashmir, is on the roadsides of India and elsewhere. This is a harsh reality. And they have been struggling for their comeback, go back, Ghar Wapsi for last 31 years now. And it is always falling on the deaf ears. And most of the policy makers here say that we don't think that Kashmiri Pandits intend to go back. No, my question is big no. We wish to go back to our roots. Our roots are engraved in the soil of Kashmir Valley for more than 5,000 years. So we cannot abdicate our roots just for proxy war launched by Pakistan or a mindset evolving through Pakistan's machination in Kashmiri Muslim psyche as anti-Kashmiri Pandit. That's not done. That's not the history. That's not how the illustrious communities live. And that's not the history also. And in independent India, where Kashmir continues to be part of India, and after 5th of August 1990, and governments and Indian states all claims that we have abrogated 370, and reality is that 370 is gone and dusted. And it is a process of full integration of Kashmir with India. And mind you, India is not only legally part of India, Kashmir is not legally part of India, it happened only in 47. But it is civilizational past and its linkages with India are centuries old. So therefore, India has a stake, civilizational stake in Kashmir. And Kashmiri Pandit has an existential stake in Jammu and Kashmir because of its roots, because of its heritage, because of its engraved roots for more than 5,000 years. So therefore, any policy maker, any bureaucrat, any politician in Delhi thinking otherwise, that no, Kashmiri Pandits are now settled, they want one-time settlement outside. No, I say with big emphasis, no. We want our roots to be retrieved for us and we need support of Indian state and the support of Kashmiri population for that. And it is the obligation of the state government, LG administration, and union government to create a consensus, create a congenial atmosphere for our return. So we are an impact community, we are fouled community. By way of ethnic cleansing, we were out of Kashmir after a concerted strategy was employed by Pakistan and ISI to kill one and scare 1,000. And our hundreds and thousands of people, men, women, infants, children, have been killed, have been maimed. Our entire assets, the properties of worth millions of rupees, has been devastated, has been taken over. So therefore, you cannot just brush aside a community of such uh, civilizational roots. You cannot brush aside and say that no, they have to live here. It's not. It doesn't augur well for any government, more so the present dispensation. So this is number one. Number two, what are we victim of? We are victim of a religious hatred. It was a war inflicted on Kashmir by Pakistan and executed by few zealots and terrorists of JKLF and Hizbul Mujahideen to cleanse this community just to make Kashmir fully a radicalized and militarized radical Islamic state. And can India as a nation state countenance that to happen? It has happened in the past, and we were told at the initial stage that there are only 200 militants, they will be taken care of. We have been hearing this for last 31 years that 200 militants are counted always to us, and those 200 militants never get wiped off, and a situation is not created for us to go back. What is this rhetoric of 200 militants, 200 militants? There is a problem with Indian state that they are not able to contain and control the security scenario in Kashmir in order to repatriate and return a small population of 700,000 people back in the valley, which is their basic birthright, which is their human right. So, any amount of developmental rhetoric, any amount of winning the hearts and minds of Kashmiris. And Kashmiris, we also include Kashmiris. We are included in the definition of Kashmiris. Where is the winning in hearts of us so that we could go back? There are two major minorities in Kashmir, and both were victims of militancy. One, the Kashmiri Pandit, which is the largest minority, other is the Sikh minority. That's also a religious minority there. Both were subject to the heinous crimes by militants, and both deserve to be respectably right to life in Kashmir itself, because that is our homeland, that is our native place. And if we go to various forums, 1993 National Human Rights Forum was created under a statute in India, and we were first to petition before that at least uphold our human rights. And after 5 years of marathon struggle and arguments, we got a finding. And the finding was unanimous by five-member bench headed by former Chief Justice Venkat Chelaya, who was an eminent jurist. He wrote that primary intent of the killers of Kashmiri Pandit has been to try achieve the secession of Jammu and Kashmir and its possible annexation to Pakistan. This has been the principal purpose of and objective of their insurgency and ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Pandits. If a forum like that has held a view, and then they said further, killing and ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Pandits must be seen with a deeper intent to secure secession of Jammu and Kashmir. The crimes committed against Kashmiri Pandit deserve strong condemnation, and they characterize this as akin to genocide. So, Kashmiri Pandit, the largest minority, religious minority of Kashmir, having been inflicted the ethnic cleansing, and the ethnic cleansing being characterized by a national forum like NHRC as akin to genocide, as genocide, what is the response of Government of India? And Government of India has sat silent for such a long time, and it is still sitting silent on this issue. On the day of abrogation of Article 370, Prime Minister gave its objective to the country and countrymen. And among other objectives which he relayed to the country was that those who have, for reasons of violence, been displaced from Jammu and Kashmir, it is our bounden duty to set it right and send them back and facilitate their return. And almost 2 years are coming to that objective statement. Nothing has done. Prime Minister has almost fulfilled a couple of promises. The recent promise being holding the Panchayat Raj elections and then giving development and industrial policies of 228,000 crore of incentives to Kashmiri industry and Kashmiri population. But where is the promise which he made solemnly before the nation as an objective inside and outside the parliament? That is not being fulfilled. And should we take it, most of us characterize it as the failure of nation state where this ethnic minority, where this religious minority so far. And mind you, we have been victim of the failure of nation state at the time of our exodus. Because if nation state had exerted at that point of time, possibly we would not have been out of our own roots. It was a failure of nation state then. Nation state is failing us continually, and it is a failure of nation state, sorry to say, even as on date. Militarily, I am satisfied as a citizen that most of the operations and the terror ecosystem has been devastated, and the elephant in the room, Pakistan, is also taken care by operations going right in their territory and teaching them a lesson. And back home, the security forces, the armed forces, the army are doing a very hilarious job to contain the situation. But my only worry is that the narrative continues the same way. The figure continues the same way. 200 militants in one. When I left Kashmir, at the instance of the state government and central government, that it is a matter of 2 months. We have hardly 100 or 200 terrorists, and within 2 months you will be back. And it is almost 32 years now. I am not even able to look back to my home. All devastation which has taken place. And I have a question for Kashmiri society also. How come that most of the people who left us for the same security reasons, who left Kashmir, including Abdullahs, Muftis, loans, and everybody, and most of scores of Kashmiri Muslims, after 96, when the popular government came there, they went back and settled, and they are part of Kashmiri milieu. How is it that this only one community still remains as refugees in their own country? There is a big question mark for Muslims. Possibly, the majority of the community doesn't want us back. So, what is the facility created? What is the dialogue created? What is the consensus created? Instead, as Javed says, that hostility against the Kashmiri Hindus and in turn against the Indian state, Indian government, and Indian country as a Hindu state is colossally developed as a hatred. So, if in this hate atmosphere, is it possible for this government to create conditionalities for our return? You know, the problem is that hoping against hope for 32 years is enough. And now this community is on the verge of extinction, on the verge of disintegration. Individually, they may have done well. Individually, I am one of the top 10 lawyers of Supreme Court. But my roots are always calling me. I am a rootless person in Delhi. How do I account for with my future generation, with children and grandchildren, that where are our roots? India is my country. India is my uh, country. It is my karma bhumi at the moment. But where is my janma bhumi? And mind you, if it had seceded to Pakistan, I would have not mind because most of the refugees came from Pakistan and settled in India. It's irony that when Kashmir continues to be part of India physically, how is it that in the present times of enlightenment, transparency, globe is one, and this ethnic minority and religious minority is not able to go back and settle? If there are economic issues, this government can discuss with us. If there are some other issues, they can discuss it. They are engaging with the dialogue with the rest of the Kashmiri community, but not the Kashmiri Pandits. What is the reason for that? Except that 1700 crores was given a package by Manmohan Singh for temporary shelters and shifting of people from tenements to a secured some, I think, hutments. Except that, nothing has happened. 6,000 posts were reserved for Kashmiri Pandits. They are not being even filled today. And today's government says, yes, we are doing something. And what they are doing is fulfilling those very outstanding vacancies from that package. No new package, no nothing addition has been done. I remember when I.K. Gujral was Prime Minister of this country, he said that even if the coffers of Indian state have to be emptied for this illustrious community, that is a small price. So our contribution towards the nation building in armed forces, in intelligence grid, in shaping up the destiny of the policies here in this India have been tremendous. And they have been recognized in past, they are being recognized even today. But the caveat is, but they are being kept out of their own homeland and earth. How is it countenanced in present day times that a 700,000 population cannot be repatriated and returned and given some political empowerment and make we will be only givers in Kashmir, we will not take anything from Kashmir. I think with our exposure all over the world, we can go and contribute towards better development, better integration, and better development of Jammu and Kashmir as such as our native land. And we have the experts who can do wonders in Jammu and Kashmir. But the problem is that the will is lacking, and Kashmiri Pandits are willing, more than willing. Let us say that they always resolve that we shall go back to our roots, we shall go back to our land. The myth which is being spread all over that they are not willing to go back is a false narrative created by vested interests, not only from within Kashmir, but within the policy echelons of New Delhi also. So therefore, I want to disabuse that mindset with anybody and everybody that we shall go back, we are willing to go back, we are willing to settle back. And why not? Why not in today's context when 370 is gone and dusted, when Kashmir is fully integrating with Kashmir, with India, when Kashmir is becoming part of the land of opportunities of India? Why not go and help our own brethren? There are moderate voices. I am not saying that everything is as dark or as bad as Javed has put it. There is a moderation. There is a moderation elements within the society. Kashmir society has never been against India, against Kashmiri Pandits. And mind you, sir, that in today's psyche of those even who, for their attitudinal reason, for their ideological reason, and for their religious reasons, do not want to be part of mainstream. Even there is an introspection, there is a change that Indian nation state has come to stay in Kashmir. That is a harsh reality the Kashmiri society understands. Kashmiri society is very intelligent. That's how they participated in large numbers in the recent election. They did it in 2014 also. They participated in large numbers and they reiterated today and send a loud message to India and to Indian people that if if India imparts love, if India imparts development, if India embraces Kashmiris with affection, Kashmiris are also equally willing to be part of the mainstream, and it's a reality for them. It's not a just a politics for them. It's a reality for them. Maybe the political elite may have a different narrative, but the common narrative is for development, for peace, for inclusive Kashmirian. That is my feeling, and that is the silver line. And I keep on interacting with Kashmir on day-to-day basis. I visit Kashmir every day almost mentally. Physically, I could not go because of COVID for some reason. But I am a day-to-day of Kashmir affairs because I have an existential stake in Jammu and Kashmir. And Kashmir is my motherland, Kashmir is my homeland. Therefore, all the Kashmiris, wherever they are longing to return home, and as and when the opportunity is given to them. And mind you, we can't go without the support of government of India. we don't have very large resources to go there because our houses are either burned, are looted, or the property is grabbed. So therefore, government has to facilitate our return. So we cannot have quarrel with those who have grabbed our properties, who have trespassed our property.
Ashokji, we leave some time now for the question answer. So, yeah.
Therefore, my passionate request and appeal through this medium to Government of India is that please engage with the representatives of Kashmiri Pandits. And I, for one, assure you that we are going back and we shall go back to our homeland with dignity, with security, with political empowerment. We want to be part of our own native land. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashokji, for that very frank and very candid expression of views. And I share your angst because I lost 4 of my blood relations to militant bullets. And people of Jammu and Kashmir, even Poonch Rajouri, we fought this ethnic cleansing tooth and nail there. You know, people had organized themselves. They wanted to engineer a similar kind of exodus from upper belt of Chenab and some of these other areas. But people were able to organize. But my regret is that despite, you know, bringing peace and normalcy into these areas, these areas were not rewarded in terms of development. You know, there was such a tremendous opportunity for some of these areas of Bhadrawa, Kishtwar, even Poonch Rajouri to be the alternate destinations of tourism. But nothing much has been done over these years actually to invest in this kind of a thing. So I would now request Mr. Anil Goswami to give his own sort of very broadly what are the major programs and how can these be implemented in letter and spirit, because one common aspiration cutting across the religious orientation and religious thinking is which everybody needs is good governance, development, and a hope for better life for future. So over to you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and a happy new year to everybody. The Parliament of India passed the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019 on 5th and 6th of August 2019 and reconstituted the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir into 2 union territories, the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and the Union Territory of Ladakh, with effect from 31st October 2019. As a result, about 170 state laws were repealed, about 108 central laws became applicable in J&K. The Constitution of India is now fully applicable to the 2 UTs. All the rights that are available to the women, the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, and the other depressed classes in the rest of the country are now available to the residents of J&K. The rupees 80,000 crore Prime Minister's development package has now been fast-tracked. 63 projects were taken up under this package in 15 sectors in the year 2015. Unfortunately, the pace of progress was very slow, but after August 2019, the pace was fast-tracked. As per the latest information released by the Union Territory Government, 20 out of these 63 schemes have already been completed. 16 more schemes will be completed by March 2021. Another 8 schemes will be completed by June 2021, and the remaining by 2022. What makes this achievement remarkable, is the fact that this package for J&K, as I mentioned earlier, was given in 2015. Until 2018, virtually nothing had been done, whereas immediately in the last year and a half or so, the pace has picked up and a large number of schemes have been completed, and the Union Territory's claim is that all of them will be completed by 2022. In addition to this, there were about 6,000 projects which were languishing in the erstwhile state of J&K. Some of them were as old as 25 years. In order to complete them, the Union Territory government took the initiative and set up an infrastructure development corporation, which raised money from the market. They raised an amount of 8,000 crores, and out of this, 6,500 crores was released for completing these languishing projects in one go. As per the latest information released by the Union Territory government, about 1,100 languishing projects have been completed. The impact of this has been tremendous because people have been witnessing the project's completion in front of their eyes. In the health sector, 7 new medical colleges have been opened in Baramulla, Anantnag, Kathua, Rajouri, Doda, Udhampur, and Leh. 400 additional MBBS seats have been allotted, making a total of 900 MBBS seats available to the Union Territories. 11 new nursing schools have been opened. 2 AIIMS, one in Avantipura in the Kashmir Valley and one in Samba in the Jammu region, are being set up. 2 new state cancer institutes have been approved, and more than 1,100 health and wellness centers are being constructed, out of which 800 are ready. In addition, more than 1,000 posts have been created for the various medical colleges. Remarkable progress has also been made in the implementation of the Ayushman Bharat, which is the Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Swasthya Suraksha Mission scheme. Gold cards were issued to about 6 lakh families in Jammu and Kashmir. This became possible because J&K reached out to all eligible families and got them enrolled through a door-to-door campaign. This had 2 consequences. One, it was a massive information dissemination exercise and everybody got to know about the program. And second, the enrollment shot up rapidly. Recently, the Prime Minister of India demonstrated his firm commitment for improving the health of the people of the UTs by starting the Ayushman Bharat Sehat scheme for J&K. Now, the Sehat scheme is the name that has been given in J&K to the Prime Minister's Jan Arogya scheme. After the introduction of the Ayushman Bharat Sehat scheme in J&K, the benefit of the scheme will be available to about 21 lakh families of the state. In the last 1 year, about 1 lakh persons have already derived benefit under the Ayushman Bharat scheme. This benefit was availed by people suffering primarily from cancer, heart ailments, and orthopedic problems. Under the scheme, each citizen who holds the card is entitled to a treatment of up to 5 lakh in the designated hospitals. This is a remarkable boon for the poorer sections of the society of the 2 union territories. The benefits under the scheme will be available to the people of the UTs, not only in the government and the private hospitals in the 2 UTs, but also in the 24,000 odd hospitals that have been designated for this purpose throughout the country. In addition, excellent work has been done to control the corona pandemic in J&K. More than 3,000 doctors, 14,000 nurses, paramedical staff, and ASHA workers continue to treat the patients during the pandemic, often at a risk to themselves. They also made numerous hospitals in the UTs ready to handle corona patients in a very short time. In fact, the outstanding work done by the health department of the UT came in for praise by no less a person than the Honorable Prime Minister of India. In the last 70 years, prior to August 2019, Jammu and Kashmir had been able to harness only about 3,500 megawatts of power from the rivers of the state. J&K has a potential of about 25,000 megawatts of hydroelectric power. In the last about 70 years, only 3,500 megawatts of power had been harnessed. Since the time the 2 UTs have been announced, work on adding another 3,000 megawatts of power has commenced. The major projects that have been taken up are the 1,000 megawatt Pakaldul hydroelectric project, 850 megawatt Ratle hydroelectric project, and 624 megawatt Kiru hydroelectric project. Work has already been started at Pakaldul, and projects, the packages are ready to be tendered. The stalled irrigation projects have also been revived. These include the Shahpur Kandi project and the Uj multipurpose project. The Shahpur Kandi project was lying stalled for the last 70 years. When completed, this project will provide assured irrigation to about 54,000 hectares of land and provide 470 million units of electricity per annum. Similarly, the Uj multipurpose project has also been revived. When completed, it will provide assured irrigation to over 31,000 hectares and produce 196 megawatts of power. The semi-ring road around Jammu is expected to be completed shortly. The Jammu-Akhnoor road is expected to be completed in 2021. The Chennai Sud Mahadev road is expected to be completed also in 2021. The Rambagh flyover in Kashmir has already been completed. Under the Prime Minister's Grameen Sadak Yojana, about 3,000 kilometer road length has been completed. 147 new projects have been sanctioned. The entire 286 kilometer long Jammu-Srinagar National Highway is being 4-laned and improved. On the Srinagar-Leh National Highway, the Z Mode and the Zojila tunnels are being constructed to provide all-weather connectivity to Ladakh. Recently, a new 28,400 crore industrial development package has been announced for J&K. It contains 4 types of incentives: capital investment incentives, capital interest subvention incentives, goods and services tax linked incentives, and working capital interest subvention incentives. This industrial development package will support both the manufacturing as well as the service sector, and it is likely to be a game changer for the industrial environment in the state. With a turnover of about 8,000 crores per year, almost 7 lakh families are directly or indirectly associated with the horticulture sector in the state. Apple is the main fruit crop grown. In September 2019, for the first time, the market intervention scheme for apples of J&K was launched through the NAFED, which is a Government of India organization. NAFED procured the apples and marketed them, and reportedly the growers received higher remuneration. This year also, NAFED was given the responsibility for market intervention. NAFED purchased 12 lakh metric tons of apples directly from the growers, and the money due to them was paid directly into their accounts through the direct benefit transfer scheme. The government of J&K and the central government are also creating new opportunities for food processing in both Jammu and the valley. Schemes are being drawn up for availing loan from the banks for these schemes and are likely to increase the job opportunities for the youth of the 2 regions. For the first time, as announced by the Lieutenant Governor of J&K recently, for the first time, 10.70 lakh farmers of Jammu and Kashmir received monetary benefits of rupees 1,132 crores from under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. Almost all the farmers of J&K received this benefit, and the money was transferred again directly into their accounts through the system that has already been introduced by the Government of India. The work of geotagging of Kashmir saffron has been accomplished, and schemes for increasing the yield of Kashmir saffron are also being implemented. From September 2019, 52 new colleges have been approved and 572 posts created for them. 36,000 Rehbar-e-Talim were regularized as teachers. This is truly an enviable achievement. The government is now moving to fulfill its slogan of Har Ghar Nal Se Jal. Under this scheme, piped water will be provided to every household at a cost of rupees 8,500 crores. The water that will be provided to the households will conform to the BIS 10,500 standard. The scheme is expected to be completed by 2022. This year, as announced by the Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, the week starting from 24th December 2020 witnessed the return of the tourists to Kashmir in large numbers. People from all over the country turned up to see the snow. Let us hope that this trend continues. In addition to the above, the following new initiatives are also being taken in the Union territories. The Bhatinda-Jammu gas pipeline is being planned. This will bring piped gas supply to Jammu and Kashmir. Proposals for 2 light metro transit projects in Jammu and Srinagar have been finalized and are ready for being posed for financing. 2 metropolitan region development authorities for Jammu and Srinagar have been set up. 100,000 units of new housing are planned in a modern metropolitan environment, and these are expected to come up in these metropolitan region development authorities. 5 lakh square feet each plug and play space is being planned for Jammu and Srinagar in the IT towers. The area under high density apple plantation is to be increased by 1 lakh hectares. Now, in order to increase the connect between the government and the people and to extend the benefits of development to rural areas and remote areas, the government started the Back to the Village program. Under this program, about 5,000 gazetted officers of all levels of seniority visited each and every Panchayat Halka. In the first phase, they stayed in the village for 2 days and 1 night and listened to the problems of the people. This was a very successful initiative and found enthusiastic support among the people. 2 rounds of this program have been completed. The third round is expected to commence soon. The government is also finalizing proposals for the safe and dignified return of the Kashmiri Pandits to the valley as per the information released by the Union Territories. Mr. Ashok Bhan spoke on this at length, so I will not go into that. The Ladakh region has the potential of becoming a carbon neutral unit of the country. The central government, in consultation with the people of the region, is preparing a model plan for this purpose and will start its implementation on the ground shortly. Under this scheme, a 7,500 megawatt solar park is envisaged to be set up. Besides, a central university is coming up in Ladakh. New research centers are being set up. Courses on hotel management are being conducted, and Ladakh is now humming with activity. I have mentioned some of the initiatives that the government has taken to speed up the pace of development in the UTs of Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir. What is remarkable about all of them is that the rapid pace at which the work is being carried out. However, even more important than all this has been the strengthening of the grassroots democracy that the UTs have witnessed. The strength of democracy lies in the involvement of the people at the grassroots level in the process of decision making. In the last 1 year, the persons elected at the panchayat level, the block level, and the ward level have started representing the people of their respective constituencies in these bodies. The newly elected representatives are not only participating in the process of decision making at the respective levels, but are also monitoring the implementation of the decisions. This is further strengthening democracy in the region. In fact, the recent elections to the district development councils were an eye-opener in this regard. They were violence-free. Credit for this has to be given to the administration, the police, and the security forces in the army, as well as to the brave people of the Union Territories. People out to vote despite the threats, despite the weather, and despite the corona pandemic, and voted in large numbers. By doing this, they reinforced their faith in democracy. The elections were held in a fair and transparent manner, and they have thrown up new leaders who are likely to lead the Union Territories in the years ahead. These people have emerged from the grassroots and are aware of the difficulties, the aspirations, and desires of their constituents. In the years to come, they will strive to meet these aspirations. They will remain connected to their roots because they have emerged from the people. It has been effectively demonstrated by these elections that change is possible, and this change will be brought about by their elected representatives. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Goswami. I think this is first time I've heard such an exhaustive and authoritative account of the government initiatives and the programs. And unfortunately, we have not been able to somehow propagate this to the people of Valley. They're still stuck in that old paradigm of what Javed has brought out, into a very toxic and negative kind of a sort of a mindset. And I think as part of our non-kinetic impact, that narrative, it's extremely important that these things actually reach out to the people who matter, particularly the youth, because this ushers in a lot of hope and optimism for a better future of state of Jammu and Kashmir. So thank you very much for this very, very exhaustive and very, very optimistic sort of I won't call it perspective, but a fact sheet on the government initiative.